Hey ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to another news video today, taking a look at the disaster that Dead Matter has become, although most of you guys would have predicted it. I told you guys a few days ago that out of nowhere they just launched their game into early access. After 6 years of development, nearly $7 million funding this zombie survival apocalyptic game, out of the blue, just boom, here you go, on a Saturday, go play the game in early access. And I just had a feeling it wasn't going to be a great game to play, so I checked out a few streamers, went back to some of the half-an-hour footage I had of playing the alpha from like 3 years ago, and come to the conclusion that Dead Matter simply just wasn't worth my time even making or covering proper content on. It was sitting at like a 13% positive review score, and that has now dropped to just 8%. The launch just went so bad with so many negative reviews. Dead Matter is now one of the worst rated games on Steam. And I'm talking out of bigger games. I'm talking about games that actually got effort, money put into them, not just some silly little indie ones that one person made in 5 minutes. In fact, it's actually beating Overwatch 2 currently as the worst game to release on Steam this year. The devs have responded. QI Games has released a big lengthy statement. And when I say lengthy, yeah, it's pretty lengthy. Effectively, they're sorry for releasing the game in a horrible state. They've also took down their social media posts promoting the fact that the game was now available. I mean, you didn't do that many. There was literally like one tweet and maybe a Discord notification, no gameplay trailer, no TikToks, no Instagram posts, no nothing. They've said that they don't feel comfortable pushing and promoting the game with it having some key issues that are ruining the experience for people that are trying to play the game for what it is. For those that are unaware, the build that are initially sent for review is not the build that was eventually released. The build that we initially sent for review is not the build that was eventually released. You are in charge of that. If you as a developer can't get the fundamentals of how to release certain builds on Steam, I think that speaks volumes for what kind of level you're at as a developer. Now, they go on to say, for transparency, they've moved this build to a public beta branch that everyone has access to called Release Staging. Despite the poorer UX and some of the bugs affecting this version, people have been reporting this build running 20 to 30 FPS better than the current default build. This is based on a 2-week-old build, but there are even older ones with far better performance. With our staff combing through the builds that were done in August to identify where things fell off, in the future we'll be automating the process of gathering performance data to prevent this from ever happening again. Once we've addressed the issue with performance and gameplay, we'll be resuming with the final leg of our launch plan. I just don't buy this. I don't think any developer's sitting there and doesn't know exactly what's going on with a specific build. Like, sure, you bake or you cook, as they call it, and that can take a while to go up to Steam. And so there are some instances where a wrong version does get uploaded. I remember back in the day this happened a couple of times with Ark, and effectively it would lead to maybe some bases being destroyed or FPS tanking or players being booted. And then they'd have to re-upload the right build. Now, that was a big company, and like I said, devs can make mistakes. And maybe if he was trying to be kind and give Dead Matter devs the benefit of doubt, you could argue their lack of experience, their first time launching a proper full-blown game, yes, maybe this can happen. But given how vital early access launch is, surely this was something that you should have been checking, double checking, triple checking to make sure. I just don't buy it that their recent build somehow been degraded to much worse than what they were working on 2 weeks ago. How does that make sense? They go on to talk about the performance issues, and I'm not going to verbatize all of these little statements, but effectively there's notable performance issues. All of our staff just really want people to know we're working diligently to rectify the state of the game, and we're taking your feedback very seriously. Sometimes the feedback that cuts the deepest and hurts the most is because there's a lot of truth behind that feedback. We're not giving in to the calls telling us the game is dead or that it's over. We are here to make this succeed, and to you, the people. Crikey. I don't know, man. I don't know if there's much coming back from a game rated only 8% positive. Something that's also blowing my mind is how little people actually have played this version of the game, amassing only a peak of 99 players on the Saturday that it released. As you might well imagine, things haven't exactly gone that great, with only 4 or 5 people now playing it. Now, if we looked at the release staging, I wish I could actually show you how many people were actually playing in game, but there's no actual chart info for exactly that many. But you can't imagine it's more than 100 if the very base game on the Saturday released, that was all it kind of hit. Let's not forget, Dead Matter raised over $1 million by 36,000 backers. another nearly $200,000 by another 5,000 backers from another platform. That was a decent chunk of money to get any project off of the ground, and surely should last development for a small team of maybe 6 to 10 people at least 2 to 3 years. I might blow people's minds with this a little bit, but Ark Survival Evolved was made pretty much in 6 months when it initially came out by a team of about 40 people for $1 million. That's supposedly how much investment they got, how much it cost with all their costs and everything else. So by that logic, that kind of work, scaling it down to Dead Matter, which I don't think has ever had more than 10 people working on it, over $1 million should surely last 2 or 3 years. I think the basics of what really gets people's goat with Dead Matter is they released this alpha 3 years ago and it got a lot of blowback. Despite being NDA, they tried getting some creators involved to give it a glowing little look. I was one of them, hence why I've got it sitting on my hard drive, and brave enough of them to show actually the progress that they'd made. Up to that point, they'd done plenty of fluid and kind of jazzy dev blogs, but I do feel this has actually hindered them. After seeing some great things in these devlogs, seeing the great animations, hundreds of zombies possibly on screen at once at sometimes, the ability to drive through these crazy overbuilt towns that look like something from Red Dawn, people were hopeful that yeah, this is coming together. Of course, these were only ever snapshots. These were only ever small one-time windows into development, how things were going with that one particular thing. And I hate to say lied, but it does look like a lot of the stuff they're talking about was just simple nonsense that they haven't been able to introduce to the game. That unique animations for the zombies, characters and more just hasn't been implemented properly for whatever reason. And yeah, that's the bottom line. Players have seen these devlogs, they've seen the overhype, they've seen the communication from these developers, they've known all about the money they've made, and they've obviously seen the rumours and the accusations that money has been squandered and wasted and possibly allegedly embezzled, and you could understand why players are really angry. If the game had come out in some sort of medium state, knowing that early access is the perfect time to get things right and not to expect the game to be fully polished, lots of people I'm sure would understand. After all their time with their alpha as well, you would have assumed they would have ramped things up with a beta, a closed beta, maybe an open one, let a bunch of people try the game, maybe put it inside one of the Steam Next Fest, anything to build up the hype a little bit more gently, take on feedback, instead of what they did do, which was kind of just dump it and run, supposedly. It's clear that a lot of these devlogs are showing just off the store bought items and animations and more. There's nothing really wrong with that as long as you can deliver it all as a cohesive whole once the game comes out. But that hasn't happened. So again, now they're facing accusations of like, what have they been doing with their time? What has millions of dollars, not just the 1.2 million they generated, where exactly has all that money gone? Why is the game in such a state as it is? Even by early access standards, one of the poorest going. Is there hope for Dead Matter in looking at other games that have also had rocky launches? Honestly, I'm not too sure. Survive the Nights was another zombie survival apocalyptic game that actually got kind of released at the same sort of time, or initially teased as Dead Matter. And although it says 2017, I do believe that was the initial release date of a very early alpha. And then they basically went off, they took it off Steam for about 2 or 3 years. Now Survive the Nights is made by a small little British team, probably very similar to Dead Matter, starting out with maybe only 2 or 3 people actually working for them, before maybe expanding to maybe up to 10. They didn't have a huge Kickstarter campaign behind them, I don't believe so, but you get the idea. It's a very similar kind of theme for the game. Post-apocalyptic survival, taking on other players. I'll bet this one not really an MMO, more like DayZ. Yeah, it's sitting at a 68% positive review score, mixed. And certainly has improved. I remember seeing this definitely as a negative. So over the last few years, with semi-regular updates, they seem to have pulled an audience from somewhere. Although again, it has to be said, the player numbers actually playing the game aren't exactly filling me with optimism. But you get the idea. Can Dead Matter pull it off? Can they get this and turn it around and turn it into something where they're showing people they're rapidly updating the game, they're implementing some of the stuff that they've spoken about for years and years, and turn it into somewhat of a mixed success at least, instead of an overwhelmingly negative one? And I just don't see it happening. I do see something inevitable happening. That in a few months' time, they'll simply state that not enough people bought the early access launch. due to their own problems and issues with the way it was, and unfortunately they're going to have to shutter off development. I want to be proved wrong. I'm not really wanting to crap on game developers. I want things to be a success. I wanted this game to be a success. I thought it had promise, hence why I hyped it up for a few years. But once I started seeing they had project management issues, and specifically lots of exposés by other YouTubers, it kind of left me with no faith at all. And ultimately, so many other players agree. It's just baffling to me how so little people have actually got onto the game to even give it a shot, considering there were so many backers. That definitely needs investigating. How can you have 36,000 people potentially available to play your game, but the most that you can get on its release day is 100? I've seen some comments from players saying they had to go and get another Steam code from one of these off-site websites, that their closed alpha didn't transform directly into obviously what it should be. So maybe it's just a case of players not actually getting around to it. Can you imagine being some sort of dickhead though that spent $950 and this sold out apparently 20 or 20 of these, and this is what you was greeted with? Dead matter in the state it is today. So yeah, good luck to them. It's no real skin off my nose. Like I told you guys, I'm not going to be covering the game. I made that decision pretty rapidly after seeing some of the footage already and reading through the reviews. If they can pull this off, if they show a lot of actual heart in getting updates done in the next 6 months, fixing stuff they've promised will be fixed, then maybe it will be worth revisiting and seeing how progress has been made. But yeah, I can definitely see this game just being shunted off and closed down in a matter of months. Agree, disagree, let me know. And I guess we all go blindly, stupidly, like the sheep we are, jumping onto the next survival bandwagon, hoping that the next one will be the best one.